Hey homeschoolers, I'm Melissa Webb, former full-time classroom teacher and homeschool mom turned full-time business CEO. I am determined and dedicated to helping you. Yes, I want to give you sound, educational, practical tips and advice, at the same time making sure that you're enjoying the family journey that you are on. So if you are looking for a place to be encouraged and inspired, you have found the perfect podcast. Homeschooling is a work of heart is truly the perfect place to start. So welcome. Let's jump in. Well, hello, friends. If you happen to listen to last week's podcast, which was called Self-Esteem versus Self-Control, you are not alone. That episode apparently struck a chord with many of you, and it was our highest ever download to date. So thank you for that. That episode struck a nerve because it told the truth. I really believe that kids and adults have been leading with their emotions far too frequently, and I think people are seeing it and they're wanting to take back that self-control ability that we all have and recognize when our feelings are taking control. And that is key. That awareness of recognizing that it's even happening, that's important. And why? Well, remember what follows our feelings. Whatever you're feeling, what comes after it? It's the action. And this is Psychology 101. We have a thought in our brain. Our thoughts create how we feel. Our feelings drive our actions, and our actions lead to the results of our lives. So that's just a really important practice right there. And it's something that you can introduce to your children early on so that you can help empower them. Because if we are not practicing self-control with our kids and with ourselves, when we're just letting those first felt feelings lead to whatever actions follow, we often get regret when it just happens so fast. You know what I'm talking about? Those things that just happen so fast. I can give you a few examples. Let's say that you have a very embarrassed child. That's how the child is feeling. The child is so embarrassed. After being told in front of grandma and grandpa who are visiting that her room is such a big pigsty. So you just blurt it out. Grandma and grandpa are there, everybody sitting around the table. Like, so how's everybody doing? And you toss out there, well, we're okay, but I wish I could figure out, what to do because this child here, pointing to her, you're like, her room is a pigsty. Well, that could embarrass her. And I wouldn't be surprised to hear a child just look at mom and be like, oh, you're so mean, and scream and maybe throw whatever was in her hand onto the floor and then stomp off, right? She felt embarrassed. So she had her thought, mom thinks my room is a pigsty, or mom said, my room is a pigsty. She felt embarrassed, and the quick reaction or action taking place there is to yell and scream and be disrespectful to you, the mother, because she's so upset and embarrassed. That's what I mean by practicing self-control instead of letting those first felt feelings take over and then have regret. That's what we want to avoid. Let's see, if I gave you another one, I'd want to look at the parent side of this. So let's say that happens, and now you're the parent and you feel extremely disrespected in front of your mom and dad. The grandma and the grandpa, let's say, are your parents. So then you yell at your daughter, just go to your room. You stay there. You are done for the night. Do not come out. Okay, same thing has happened here. You felt disrespected. Okay, so you didn't just feel disrespected. You had a thought about it first, like my daughter shouldn't talk to me that way. Or the thought is, My daughter just did that right in front of my parents. All kinds of thoughts go through our mind. We have like 60,000 thoughts a day, and you cannot think about every thought that you have, but there are some you should think about. And that might be one, because if it creates a feeling of disrespect, then you may act out harshly toward your daughter. So, what is the solution here? I want to introduce this week something that I'm calling the pause principle. And it's just a practical concept that I thought that I could share this week in the hopes of helping you practice more self-control in your home, teaching your children and applying yourself. But of course, it does bring up more questions like, how can I help my child or myself recognize those negative emotions before it's too late? It just happens so quickly. Yes? Or maybe, how do I balance empathy with accountability when my child is upset or acts out? Because I will not be disrespectful. There's this balance of, I want to be empathetic toward my child and care that she's upset, but at the same time, that's not okay. We talked about this a little bit last week with gentle parenting. And some people have misunderstood gentle parenting to mean permissive parenting. Those are not the same. Permissive parenting allows poor behavior. Gentle parenting is empathetic, but it doesn't allow for poor behavior. So don't worry, I have got you this week. There is some research out there from UCLA's Matthew Lieberman that shows that labeling emotions really important. That actually reduces the amygdala activity, and that always lowers stress. So one of the things we'll talk about this week is how we have to intentionally teach kids to verbalize what they feel. So to be able to say, I am embarrassed, or that embarrassed me, or I'm angry, I'm feeling nervous, this disappoints me, I'm so disappointed. When we can get our kids to use the I language instead of the you language, the brain will shift from reacting to reasoning. And that's an important first step. And another thing that we'll talk about a little bit, do you remember the marshmallow test? It was done in the 1960s. The psychologist was Walter Mischel. Anyway, little background, just a refresher. I think most of us know what the marshmallow test was. It was when he offered preschoolers, they were young, they were little kids, like probably like 3-4 years old. And he would put one marshmallow on the table and he would tell the kiddos, so you can eat that right now, or I'm going to go take care of a couple of things. I'm going to be back in 15 minutes. If you haven't eaten it, I'm going to give you a second one. I'm going to give you 2 marshmallows. So as you might imagine, some waited and some did not. But the real interesting part about that study was in the follow-up. It was years later, they followed those same kiddos, and they found that the kids who waited those 15 minutes to get 2 marshmallows ended up being people, older people, as teens, adults, and young adults. They had better self-control. That doesn't surprise me. But they also showed higher academic performance. They also were known to have healthier relationships with their parents, their grandparents, their peers. I mean, the big takeaway for me is that the ability to pause and delay gratification early on in our lives can be a great predictor of long-term success, even more so than a high IQ or being especially talented. So that's great because we can teach this. We can teach how to delay gratification. That's how we develop self-control. That's how we develop stronger executive functions in our brains. Are you familiar with Viktor Frankl? Most of you probably are. He was the Holocaust survivor. He was a psychiatrist during the time. And he, after his very long time in captivity and the witnessing of so many horrific things, including the death of his wife, He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. It's such a good book. I've read it multiple times. It's one of those books, every time you read it, you'll probably get something else out of it. It's not a super big, thick book. I have given copies to my boys because I think there's a lot of life lessons in there. I probably wouldn't recommend it for kids under 12, but it would be a good book study to do together, especially if you have 12, 13, 14-year-olds or high schoolers that would still read with you, because the discussions that would come out of it would be powerful. But he has a quote in that book that I really love. And he said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. So again, think about that. Between stimulus, so something happens and we have a feeling, and response, that's how we act. In between there, he's saying there is a space. And if anybody would know this, it would be Viktor Frankl. There were so many situations and circumstances that he was thrown into without any decision on his own. He couldn't make a decision at that point. But as soon as it happened, how he reacted, that was the space he's talking about. Something happens. I'm feeling a certain way. I could respond in a multitude of ways, but it is in that self-control where I can choose my best response. And I think that kept him alive. And so, again, great book recommendation for you there. But what I really love is that concept. And I would call that the pause principle. It's learning to pause between feeling and reacting. And again, it is a half-second gap. Half second. It happens so fast. I will tell you this. There's a lot of research that says the more you practice it, the bigger the gap gets. That's great news. Yes, because we need that time between the feeling and the reaction. That's where choice lives. That's where we make self-control happen. We need to teach our kids that emotions are signals. It's just a signal. It's like deep, beep, deep, like something's happening. It is not in order. We feel a certain way does not mean I must now react accordingly. No. Emotions are signals. So again, another great point to bring up with your kids. And this does matter. Reactivity just trains impulsivity. I forget where I read that, but I wrote that down because I liked it. Reactivity trains impulsivity. So what does that mean? The more reactive we are, the more impulsive we become. But here's the thing. When we practice the pause principle, what we're actually training is the self-control. And with self-control, we're allowed to think. And with thinking, we get wisdom. So when kids pause, they stay in charge of their next move. And that's important. And I will say this, adults who model the pause teach emotional safety, again, without some long lecture. It's practicing, knowing that our kids are watching. Okay, so let's get practical now. How are we going to teach our kiddos to do this? A few things come to mind here. So use the language, keep it short, but keep it consistent. Say things like pause. Our word is pause. It could be that simple, or something a little longer like pause first, then decide, right? Come up with some great little slogan. It could rhyme. I don't know. Let me know if you come up with something great, but you need some kind of short, consistent language that fills in that quick little gap before the action happens. As I mentioned earlier, definitely naming the emotion aloud. I'm angry. You might be like thinking she's embarrassed, but in fact, she's really angry. Naming whatever we're feeling using I language, that helps. It breaks its grip on us. Again, allowing for just a few more seconds of breathing space. Counting slowly to 5, to 3, to 10. You have to decide, right? You could just say, put up your hand, show 5 fingers. That could be a great visual to just like remind, hey, count. And then you can drop your fingers as they're counting. Have you heard of grounding? Grounding is great. You can teach your children to simply touch something that would be grounding. And it could be a cold bottle, a doorknob, a smooth stone, just something tactile. If it's really something that your child is struggling with, you may want to keep something close by. If it's something that they're practicing frequently, keep it in their pocket. Have them practice taking a deep breath, then letting their shoulders drop. Breathe in, and I would teach it to them. I would say, breathe in and lift your shoulders. Breathe out and let your shoulders drop, and do it with them. Again, modeling is so important. And I always think it should be okay, if you're in a safe space, to let your child just walk away to reset. I would rather they not say anything, but some kids need movement. You know your kiddo's best. Would that work? You could say you can walk to the other side of the house, walk to the garage door, touch it, and come back, right? Some need movement over just counting or breathing. I will consider some real life practices. I also like the mini weight. So when it's not stressful, let's say it's going to be snack time, and you say to your kids while they're finishing some assignment, say, as soon as we're done, we're going to go make a snack, but I want us all just to wait. I'm going to set a timer for 30 seconds. If your kids are really impatient, you may need to start with 15 seconds. And then over time, get that up to a minute. This is that practicing of the delaying gratification. This is why it is good. Don't let your kids just interrupt. Have them practice raising their hand, right? That's a mini wait. That's delaying gratification. They don't just get to say what they want to say. If you want them to learn how to have self-control, they have to practice it in everyday moments. And I promise you, it is consistency. It's not how long you wait. It's the consistency that you're making them wait. And you're building that self-control muscle. So again, I want to give you a real life example where you could use the language pause. But I actually first have to say this. So often when our kids kind of lose it, it's because of something we've done or said. Because as parents, we're not perfect. And there's nothing wrong with telling your child, I'm not perfect. Sometimes I blow it. And so in the situation that I opened with, grandma and grandpa come for a visit, you're all sitting at the table, and you say something derogatory about this child's lack of cleanliness in front of people she values and she cares about. So sometimes the first pause needs to come with us, right? We need to start that. Catch yourself. If you're about to say it, pause. Just tell yourself, pause. Take a deep breath. Ground yourself. I don't know what would work for you, but that's worth thinking about. Yes? But if you said it, and you can witness that quick second that you have, you said it, you look at her, there's usually a look on the face first because it's like, oh, she just said that. She's processing the thought. She's processing the sentence you said, and she has a thought about your sentence. So before she says, you're so mean, you have a half a second to say pause, and she'll stop. And hopefully she doesn't blurt it out. And again, if she does, that's a great time for correcting and say, like we can go down that path too. I kind of talked about that in last week's episode. But before she says it, ideally you can catch her. And I personally would acknowledge it. So this would be gentle parenting used the right way. It would be to say, did what I just said embarrass you? I think that would have embarrassed me. I am sorry for saying that. I shouldn't have said that. Talk about good modeling right there. And compliment her if she didn't say, you're so mean. Compliment her and be like, you didn't even blurt anything out that you regret. I'm really proud of you. Or if she did blurt it out, you could still say, did what I say embarrass you? I know it did. And I am sorry for that. But let me also say, and this is the gentle parenting, it is disrespectful for you to say that to me. Even if it's how you're feeling, we want to practice self-control and go down that road if you need to. Permissive parenting is just letting her act that way and be disrespectful, and that you don't call her out on it. No, you do need to call her out on it if that were to happen. So let's say it didn't. You caught it. You're like, pause. She doesn't say it. You acknowledge it and you apologize. And she goes, yes. Then let her label it, right? You could even say, what I say embarrass you? And let her say, no, I'm not embarrassed, but I'm mad. I'm mad that you would say that. Okay? Is that disrespectful for her to take an I statement and own her emotion? I do not believe that is disrespectful. That is conversational. And you could empathize and say, I would have been too. If that happened to me and my mom did that in front of grandma and grandpa, yep, I'd have felt that way too. And you either compliment her on handling it well, or ask her to apologize if she, spoke out as she should not have. Then later on, address the messy room, come up with solutions. It's just not a topic that you would need guests to be included in. Okay, so there's like a real life example, and I do hope that helps. I really hope that today you take away a few things. Understanding that pausing is not a weakness. In fact, it's the opposite. It's leadership, it's ownership, and it's the practice of self-control. This week, I want you to hang on to the pause principle and see where you may be able to apply it with your children or maybe even with yourself. The more often that we are practicing the pause effect, like I said, the longer that space is going to become between a feeling and a reaction. That space grows bigger the more we practice it. And isn't that where maturity forms? It is not in always knowing the right thing to say or do and doing it at the right time or moment. Good luck with that. We're human beings. But where maturity forms is in creating that space to think again and then choose wisely. So where our brains want to say, I have a thought, it's creating a negative feeling, I just want to act out. Instead, we need to have that thought, have that feeling, and think again. We want that action to actually be a thoughtful action. I want to think about this. Let me think about this. Again, that space between feelings and actions can grow with practice. And hey, if this episode was helpful or encouraging or inspirational, would you please share it with a friend this week? It would mean so much to me. I am also due for some fresh reviews on this podcast. The kindest form of appreciation, the biggest way you can say, thank you, Melissa. I look forward to this every week and I appreciate what you're doing. The biggest form of appreciation is a helpful review. It really is. It means so much to me. I read them all. So if you're done listening now, I want you to go back to the podcast show page. You have to be on the show page, not this page where you're listening. You have to go back to where you see the image. There's like the 3 dots. Go back to show and then scroll down to ratings and reviews. That's on Apple Podcasts, which is like 85% of us are listening on Apple Podcasts. I would love it if you would leave us a rating and a review, something short and sweet. I just thank you. I thank you so much. I'm already excited. I am looking forward to reading what you have to say. Right on, my friends. Well, thanks so much for tuning in and listening this week. Hey, if this was something that you found valuable, don't forget you want to subscribe or follow so that every time a new episode is dropped, you'll be the first to know. And hey, before you go, if you are looking to get some of this academic writing under your belt and outsourced so that it's one less thing, freeing you up to enjoy more time with your family, hey, you're going to want to head over to writeonweb.com to see what kinds of resources and materials I have available for you. I will look forward to seeing you there, and I will look forward to seeing you here in our next episode. Right on.